organizers have asked me to inform that the speakers, your microphones are already turned on, so no need to fumble with any buttons as soon as you're ready to speak. I don't have a microphone, but I do have a performing arts background, so I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon. On behalf of all the speakers here today, I would like to thank you all for coming and for your interest in the U.S. Department of State's support for Ukrainian refugees in Lithuania. My name is Mujib Ghaznawi. I'm the Cultural Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy here in Lithuania, but I'm also the child of 2 Cold War refugees, so it is a deep honor for me to be emceeing for today's event announcing the Ukrainian refugee funding rollout. Today you will hear from the Chargé d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy in Lithuania, Timur Bosser, the Department of State's Coordinator for U.S. Assistance to Europe, Eurasia, and Central Asia, Maria Longi. You'll also hear from the Ambassador of Ukraine to the Republic of Lithuania, Ambassador Petro Beshta, and the Vice Minister of Social Security and Labor, Justina Yekštienia. We will also have an opportunity to meet some of the representatives afterwards from the nonprofit organizations that are being funded today through the 2023 Ukraine Supplemental Appropriations Act. Before I introduce our first speaker, I wanted to remind everyone a few important notes. First, if you haven't already noticed, the event will be in English. Second, there will be a group photo at the end for our NGOs that are being awarded today, so please don't leave immediately afterwards. And finally, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions privately after the group photo with our speakers. And so now I'd like to introduce the Chargé d'Affaires ad interim of the United States Embassy in Lithuania, Mr. Timur Bosser, to give a few opening words.
Thank you, Mujib. I'd like to begin today by saying a few words about the horrific events in the Middle East this weekend. Hamas terrorists carried out a brutal attack on Israeli civilians on Saturday, murdering and kidnapping many, including American citizens. As President Biden and 4 European leaders said in a joint statement, the terrorist actions of Hamas have no justification, no legitimacy, and must be universally condemned. There is never any justification for terrorism. The statement continued that our countries will support Israel in its efforts to defend itself and its people against such atrocities. We further emphasize that this is not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks to seek advantage. All of us recognize the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people and support equal measures of justice and freedom for Israelis and Palestinians alike. But make no mistake, Hamas does not represent those aspirations, and it offers nothing for the Palestinian people other than more terror and bloodshed. I want to acknowledge and express appreciation for the strong statements from Lithuanian leaders over the weekend along these same lines. We value very much their standing with us. And I want to especially recognize today's strong resolution passed unanimously by the Seimas. The support we've seen across Lithuania for our common efforts at this time is greatly appreciated. I also want to thank Mayor Ben-Kunskas for the city of Vilnius's support for the people of Israel through the lighting that they did over the weekend. Unfortunately, we see that this tragedy has been seized on as fodder for repeating some of the worst anti-Semitic tropes, for which there is never any justification. In the face of this terror and suffering, some of the most moving images have been those from Kyiv. The support of the Ukrainian government and people in light of their own suffering under Russia's terror is a reminder that even in the darkness, it is possible to find the light of humanity and to build connections across nations. It is those bonds of support for people suffering unspeakable horrors which brings us here today. For more than 18 months, the world has admired the resilience and courage of the Ukrainian people in the face of Russia's brutal war of choice. Putin's brazen assault, underpinned by a false historical narrative, is naked aggression against a sovereign state. The United States is proud to stand with Ukraine and support it with military, humanitarian, and diplomatic assistance. Here in Lithuania, I have been moved by the way so many Lithuanians have opened their homes and extended their hands in support of individuals and families who have been displaced by this conflict. Lithuania has welcomed over 80,000 displaced Ukrainians who have fled their homeland seeking safety and security from Russia's war of choice. It has been remarkable to see the welcome that they have received. Ukrainians have left behind their communities and their livelihoods. Many have faced unimaginable trauma and loss. But here in Lithuania, they have been offered the opportunity to heal and recover in safety. As I have spoken to some of the Ukrainians who are here, I am inspired by their commitment to return to rebuild a sovereign, democratic, prosperous Ukraine when the war ends. Today, I am proud to announce that the U.S. Embassy in Lithuania will support the efforts of so many Lithuanians to assist these refugees by providing 9 grants totaling more than $1.5 million to civil society organizations. These organizations assist Ukrainians across Lithuania. I am honored that representatives of these organizations are here with us today. Lithuania's civil society organizations have been doing incredible work since the start of the conflict to support those Ukrainians who fled and are living now here. These grants will ensure that their vital work continues. Through cross-cultural learning, psychosocial support, legal assistance, and other outreach, this work helps mitigate the long-term impact of the crisis on Ukrainian families' lives and future prospects. And it helps them integrate in Lithuania, a goal many refugees embrace even as they look forward to the day they can return home. Our embassy reviewed dozens of impressive applications and debated their selections intensively. Every proposal showcased the compassion and commitment of Lithuanians across this country to support those who have been displaced. The 9 proposals we have selected reflect efforts in towns and cities across Lithuania to target the needs of the youngest and oldest among those displaced, and many of the most vulnerable in between. To the grantees, congratulations on being selected, and thank you for allowing us to be part of your efforts. We look forward to working with you. I also want to thank our partners. First, a huge thanks to Maria Longi and her team in the Office of Assistance Coordination. Without them, this grant opportunity would not have happened. I am pleased that she could be with us today for this event. I also want to thank our partners at the UN High Commissioner for Refugees and International Organization for Migration for their good work in identifying and raising awareness of the challenges displaced Ukrainians are facing. Vice Minister Yakshtiana, I want to acknowledge the great work your ministry does in coordinating all the support the government provides for Ukrainian refugees and applaud your close cooperation with civil society. The generosity of the Lithuanian people and the Lithuanian government is truly inspiring. Ambassador Beshta, it is always an honor to share a stage with you and to acknowledge the hard work that you and your team do to support your fellow nationals, even as you yourselves deal with the effects of the war in your home. And finally, I want to thank our hosts here at the Mažvydas Library for the continued partnership and for hosting our American Center. Once again, congratulations to the Lithuanian organizations selected to receive this funding, and I look forward to visiting many of you in the coming months to see your great work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Ms. Maria Longi, the coordinator of the Department of State's Office of the Coordinator for U.S. Assistance to Europe, Eurasia, and Central Asia. Ma'am.
Thank you. I will be sure to pass along to my office your appreciation for the work that we did on this to bring this small grants program to reality. At the same time, we should also thank the U.S. Embassy, as well as our embassies in Tallinn and Riga, for bringing to our attention the inspiring resolve of the Baltic people to open their doors to help their Ukrainian neighbors. We were moved by the accounts of community mobilization to support people fleeing the Kremlin's brutal war, and the compassion and generosity shown by the Lithuanian people. The people of Ukraine continue to be experiencing the horror of threats to their culture, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. Since 2014, Russia's forces have been trying to forcibly take over parts of Ukraine. For the last year and a half, Russia has deliberately, ruthlessly, and methodically attacked Ukraine's energy infrastructure in a concerted effort to leave people cold and in the dark. Russia has mined Ukraine's fields and agricultural land and has blocked their shipping lanes to prevent crop exports desperately needed in the global south. Russia has also attacked schools. They have kidnapped children from Ukraine and tried to indoctrinate them with Russian propaganda. Luckily, some of these vulnerable children have managed to make their way to the Baltic states. Russia has done its best to break Ukraine, the will of the people, their identity, and their future. Putin expected a quick victory, but he underestimated the resolve of the people of Ukraine and the support for Ukraine in the international community. The United States has provided approximately $73.8 billion in humanitarian, security, and economic assistance since Russia's unprovoked full-scale invasion in February of 2022. This includes $2.3 billion for the humanitarian sector, $26.6 billion for development, and $44.9 billion in the security sector. Lithuania knows firsthand the brutality of Russia's so-called sphere of influence and shares Ukraine's strength of will in fighting it. This country has a history of taking action to thwart the Soviets and other threats. As both a member of NATO and the EU, it is inspiring to see the Lithuanian government implementing the EU's temporary protective directive, going above and beyond to offer people fleeing Ukraine housing, healthcare, education, and jobs, the same social protections enjoyed by the Lithuanian people. In addition to government programs, Lithuanian civil society has also actively taken part in supporting refugees from Ukraine with language and job training, psychological counseling, and especially children's educational and cultural activities. You don't need the U.S. to ask you to help in any way, but we are so proud to be able to offer our support as you continue doing all you can to support Ukrainians in their fight for existence. We do not see a quick end to the war, but we will continue to respond to Ukraine's requests for help, rebuilding Ukraine, and galvanizing others in the West to do the same. Together as allies, we can help shape a brighter future for Ukraine. I'm very pleased to be here and to meet all of you, and I hope your grant implementation is as successful as your energy to get them to this point. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Langi. Before I pass the floor to a dear friend of the embassy, Ambassador Petro Beshta, I wanted to take time to introduce the 9 non-governmental organizations receiving a total of $1.56 million to support Ukrainian refugees in Lithuania. These NGOs, as stated before, were selected through an open competition administered by the U.S. Embassy in Lithuania for funding through the 2023 Ukraine Supplemental Appropriations Act. For the representatives of the NGOs, can you please stand as I call the name of your institution so that you can be recognized? The funding will support the following NGOs: vyriausybės, and their project to help Ukrainian children integrate into Lithuanian society by providing them access to scouting activities and programs based on the accredited Vyriausybės youth program. House of National Communities, couldn't make it. Oh, yes, fantastic. Sorry about that. The House of National Communities will be offering Lithuanian language courses free of charge to Ukrainian refugees to support their integration as well as their employment. Save the Children Lithuania, and their efforts to address Ukrainian refugee needs for emotional and community support through a child-centered approach, engaging with specialists and provision of special home kits. NGO Caritas, fantastic, which addresses some of the most basic needs of refugees in the Vilnius and Klaipėda regions, which provides social, legal, health, psychological, and employment assistance. Refugee Council of Lithuania, you'll be providing training on entrepreneurship, digital, and cybersecurity, as well as offering networking events and Lithuanian language courses as well. NGO Frida, fantastic, and their project to provide access to individualized legal, social, and psychological assistance for women refugees with young children. Lithuanian Trade Union Alliance, fantastic, for your support in the integration of Ukrainian refugees into the Lithuanian labor market, with an emphasis on refugees with disabilities, social vulnerable refugees, and refugees who are vulnerable to labor and sex trafficking. Charity and Support Foundation Telšiai region with Ukraine. You'll be assisting with housing through mediation with property owners and provide social services, conduct consultations on employment, social integration, and psychological rehabilitation. And lastly, the Ukrainian integration in Šiauliai, Malva, which will provide refugees with psychological, legal, and counseling services, as well as Lithuanian and English languages and computer literacy courses. One round of applause for our program grantees. And now, I'd like to give a word to our next speaker, a dear friend of the embassy, Ambassador of Ukraine to Lithuania, Mr. Petro Beshta.
Thank you. Distinguished Coordinator, Maria Longi, and dear Tamir, distinguished Vice Minister, Justina Yakštėnė, dear participants and representatives of NGO. It is my great pleasure to participate in this event dedicated to the support to the Ukrainians that stay in Lithuania. I would like to start also with words of support to Jewish people under attack and the strong condemnation of the terrorist attack that we have seen for the last couple of days. In the core of our efforts today is partnership for freedom, because our fight, Ukrainian fight for freedom against authoritarian regimes, is based on partnerships, and partnership will make us prevail in this fight. And this is the same what's happening in Israel these days. We have a big coalition, global coalition of friends supporting Ukraine in this fight for freedom, and obviously United States and Lithuania are the champions of this support provided in different spheres, on the front line for Ukrainian society, to Ukrainian government having a hard time these years, and also for Ukrainians that stay outside of Ukraine, in Lithuania in this case. Since the beginning of the war, more than 80,000 Ukrainians have come to Lithuania, and we admire how effectively the government and the whole Lithuanian society have supported Ukrainians in their needs, in their efforts to integrate into Lithuanian society and help them find employment and take care of their children. This event signifies that our two friends clearly understand further needs to provide sustainable support to Ukrainians whose lives have been shattered by the war. It proves that war fatigue is a handy myth of the Russian propaganda machine. Such support and solidarity are vital. Ukrainians have a strong desire to recover from trauma, self-develop, access employment and social integration into the communities where they temporarily reside, rather than staying on the sidelines. The path of recovery from the experience of packing the whole life into one suitcase to settle down, at least temporarily, in another country is very difficult. In the 21st century, no one should know what this rescue suitcase is. For all those people, funding allocated by the US State Department is a valuable contribution on their challenging way until the eventual return to Ukraine. According to the latest surveys, temporarily displaced Ukrainians, in addition to meeting their basic needs, are strongly interested in acquiring more new knowledge, learning Lithuanian and English, improving their professional competencies, or obtaining new ones. Although more than 30,000 Ukrainians have found jobs in Lithuania, many have not yet been able to find a job in their specific field. Therefore, provision of extra tools and skills will be highly beneficial to them. Moreover, our citizens still seek professional psychological assistance. After all, it takes time, many years, to recover from what they have experienced. And of course, there is a growing need to preserve Ukrainian cultural identity and strengthen Ukrainian communities, provide access to various cultural projects and initiatives. Again, referring to the surveys, these concerns are particularly noticeable in the regions of Lithuania, and I'm very pleased that among the organizations awarded with grants are those focusing their works in the regions. I am convinced that forthcoming opportunities, services and programs to be implemented by grantee organizations will help to address needs of Ukrainians, but also allow them to gain expertise useful upon return to Ukraine to fulfill their potential and contribute to creating a war-recovered modern Ukraine. I would like once again to express our gratitude to the US State Department for this very needed support, to the Embassy of the United States for coordinating and implementing these initiatives, of course to the NGOs who have won this competition to receive these funds, and thank you all for your efforts, and let's win this war, let's bring Ukrainians back to Ukraine and build a new modern reformed Ukraine in the big European family. Thank you.